Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of صدای دانشجو. My name is Ryan Fekrat.
My name is Nora Safadi.
My name is Melody Shadenlu.
And my name is Ayeneh.
Okay, and today we will be discussing a core facet of your pre-med application. And what stands as 2 of 19 AMCAS work and activities categories. We are, of course, talking about volunteering and volunteerism. To frame our conversation today, I quote some famous Stoics of classical and Roman antiquity. Marcus Aurelius had this to say on motivation. If you are pained by external things, it is not that they disturb you, but your own judgment of them. And it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now. And as this pertains as well to the Oracle of Delphi and Aristotle's similar discussion of virtue of self. So reflecting on this virtue of self, virtue comes in many shapes and sizes, and in my opinion is one of the most difficult traits to cultivate authentically and intrinsically. However, we know that volunteering is typically important to medical schools, some assessing it higher than others, and it's also some capacity, and even in some capacity by other graduate or even undergraduate programs. So with this cohort of tail-end pre-medical students who have surely grappled with volunteering in college and lived to tell the tale, and with that Stoic evocation, I open the discussion like this. So question number 1 is, what is volunteerism to you? Everybody? I could start.
Okay.
Volunteerism to me is being open to a couple of different things and also that being very conscious of your psychic energy or psychic projection of yourself. Getting a little mystical here, but in exact terms, it is who I am to other people, who I am to myself. How do I want to grapple with my own existence, my perception of my own life? I want to take control of my life, and who am I putting forward into the world? I choose activities that are a reflection of my best self. And there's a little more nuance to who can volunteer. Some people don't necessarily have the facilities to volunteer. They don't have the money, the capabilities to volunteer in the first place. But for those that can give back, I guess another question could even be, should you give back if you always can give back? But let's start with, what is volunteerism to you? Everybody?
Well, I guess I would agree with what you were saying of it kind of being who you are, and you should be volunteering in capacities that represent who you are and what you want to do, who you want to help. It should be something you're passionate about. You shouldn't just be volunteering to put it on an application or to make yourself look good. It should be something that's genuine and it comes from a real passion. I've been volunteering in the hospital since I was in high school, and I've kind of taken on different sorts of roles, and I've gotten to see different parts of the hospital, which I think is just so important in getting a well-rounded idea of what it takes to give quality patient care, and that's something that I really value. Absolutely.
Nora, as a volunteer by trade, what do you make of volunteer jobs that are not necessarily glamorous? The ones for example, you may be serving a military-connected community, as did I, but some of the not-so-glamorous jobs that we would do, and getting up at 4 a.m. to go to this veteran alcohol recovery place and go clean their dishes and scrub their toilets, etc. What do you make of that type of work? I'm not necessarily passionate about doing that.
I mean, I think you do that because you want to be helping that group of people.
Yeah.
You know, it stems from a passion. Maybe you're not necessarily passionate about waking up at 4 a.m. and washing the dishes, but you do value, the veterans and the rehabilitation centers, and that's something that you really care about. And there are so many things that get neglected because people do want to do the flashy, glamorous roles. They want the clinical experience.
Things that look good on resume.
Exactly. And a lot of things often get neglected that need to be prioritized. And so even if you're contributing in a way that's not necessarily, what you would think of as this big, flashy, amazing role, you're still making a very big difference.
Yeah. And what really sucks is for some of us that are more altruistically inclined, I'll say, we really want to volunteer. We know that we are very fortunate to be, well-to-do or just to be affluent in different avenues of our life. And we go on wanting to volunteer, and sometimes it's like I've reached this level where I can remove myself from the biology, from the genetics. I'm okay scrubbing a dirty toilet, and it doesn't bug me so much if I know it's for a good cause.
Yeah.
But sometimes in the professional sphere, when you're adding that something that is supposed to be altruistic and it's intrinsically and trying to put it on your resume, all of a sudden it starts to lose its meaning and the meaning breaks down. And also to that same point, it a lot of those activities that are just like, scrubbing the toilet are not looked as favorably as more like competitive volunteering applications to like medical admissions committees or graduate committees, things that people are intending to put volunteering on their resume for or CV for. And so I guess a different way to take this discussion is, what do you guys think of biology versus the psychic projection? So what you are thinking about, what you know that your body wants or needs, and like how much of that can you balance before you are ego depleted and you feel just emotionally exhausted?
I think personally for me, also just to kind of like add on to what Nora was saying, just about volunteering in general, I think it like really is a good opportunity to serve and engage with communities that more diverse communities, more vulnerable communities. So just kind of touching on that, and then also what you were saying right now, or your question right now, I think just like knowing, at least for me, like knowing the impact I'm leaving to these communities, whether that's, I don't know, just like you can see it in their eyes when you're helping someone. You can see that they appreciate your help. You can, if you know that you're there to help them and it's not a chore, they can tell. The people that you're serving and helping, they can tell. And I think that honestly like really motivates me even more, and it really helps me to grow even more, if that makes sense. I'm hoping that makes sense.
If you, let's say you don't know where to volunteer, you're sort of hinting at the SES grade. If you don't know where to volunteer, that's a good place to start, is the people that literally need it the most.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? Like, where do I start? Do you start at a soup kitchen, or do you start volunteering in like a Persian club? Is it the exposure of being around Persians, you go to someone who is like you? Or do you think it's generally better to push yourself out of your comfort zone when it comes to that, like as a college student?
That makes sense. Yeah, I think it's like it depends on the person. I think there's two routes you can go. There's one where it's like, following your passions. What do you want to do? How do you want to serve your community with your passions? Yeah. And then at the same time, it's like there are many volunteering opportunities, whether that's volunteering at a soup kitchen. It's just, you can go either route. And I think like, I'm a very big believer in like, you can, obviously like if there's a will, there's a way, most of the time, sometimes. But I think that if you are passionate about something, even if it's just like, if you can't find opportunities, you can also create opportunities for yourself and for your peers and stuff. I know like, for example, at UCLA, when I came to UCLA, I didn't have a lot of guidance. I didn't know where to begin. I honestly was at this point where I was like, I didn't know where to begin. And I did start volunteering at the hospital, and it was very impactful, empowering. But at the same time, that motivated me to start my club at UCLA to create volunteering opportunities for others. So that I guess creating opportunities for myself and then also for my peers and helping them figure out their way as well. So I think it really does depend on the person.
Yeah, that touches on like a really good thing for apps is creativity in any capacity is what breeds that, that aura of excellence on apps or just really in personal growth. If you can exercise your creativity muscle, especially in volunteering, it reflects good on you as a person. Ida, do you want to give your definition of what volunteerism is to you, or should we move on?
I think you guys hit on pretty good points on volunteering, what volunteering is to me, or like I resonate a lot with what you guys said. I also think like one other component that I would add to the discussion is like it is a great way to meet other people who have the same interest as you, and in a way you're able to open new doors to volunteer further or have new opportunities, and having like a sense of community. Like Melody said, she created a club, so she created a sense of community for people who are interested in doing the same things, and I think that's a great part, that's like a great like byproduct of volunteering. And yeah, I think that's like one thing I would add. And I also think that, again, like for me personally, when I started volunteering in high school, it was like very minor, small acts of volunteering, like, you know, fundraising, things like that that were easy to do. And as time progressed, I kind of moved towards like more heavier volunteering. Because again, I agree, it depends on like your psyche and how much you're able to do as a person. And not everyone can immediately go from like a very heavy, hard, like volunteering duty at like a young age, right? So it's like there's definitely like a journey, I would say, when it comes to volunteering.
A lot of them also age restricted as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Even up to 21.
That is true.
I wanted to add something. Volunteering doesn't necessarily need to be done through like an organization or a corporation. You can just put together kits and hand them out to homeless people on the street, and that's a form of volunteer work, you know? It doesn't necessarily need to be this big, grand program that you sign up for or pay to get into.
That's a good point.
It could just be small acts in your day-to-day life. It could be tutoring your peers and doing it voluntarily, you know?
Yeah, it's tough because that's one of those things that is like purely intrinsic. You're hard pressed to write that down on an application, but it gets at like that's the core of your being. If you're like taking your genuine free time, you're not in some org or like the Red Cross, like something like that, and you're just doing it just cause, or maybe you organize a group of students just cause. That is 100% your personal journey and all that. Yeah, a great way to build character is volunteering as well. Well, I forgot a question, but let's go to question 2. So we've been talking a little bit about this, but how does volunteerism benefit your grad app or your undergrad app? What does that look like? So articulating it onto paper. So actually this does kind of touch on what we were talking about just now, is how do you articulate volunteering onto paper? What is the framework that you approach, you know, guiding your discussion to not make it look like virtue signaling and more like this is something I want to do. And this is what I just remember what I wanted to ask is, where did we start volunteering? So what was your seedling that you planted to grow the way that your relationship with volunteering now? So I'll reiterate, how does it benefit your app? What does that look like? And where did you start?
I could go first.
Yeah.
So I started volunteering in high school. My first real volunteer opportunity was where I continue to volunteer now at UCLA Hospital. And I've kind of progressed into different roles over the years. I've been in different departments. I've been in different programs. I've been in different campuses. I've been in the Santa Monica and Ronald Reagan hospitals. And I've gotten the opportunity to see many different types of people in many different types of cases, different elements within the hospital setting. And how to translate that on your application. I mean, it's a lot about what you do, and sure, like your roles, that actual thing you're doing in the hospital, but it's also like the stories you have to tell. And I think that's very important for your application. What experiences did you have that shaped what you are doing? Like, you know, you could just be pushing a cart around the hospital, but like maybe you really touched someone and they actually wanted to talk to you for half an hour about something they were going through.
Especially good for med school apps if you physically touched someone.
Oh yeah.
That counts as clinical experience then. Like, write that down. So are we all in agreement that stories are in our apps?
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
if I can add, I think the biggest way for me, you know, when I'm thinking about medical school applications, like a lot of people are volunteering at the hospital. And I've heard that from advisors, like what is going to make me stand out? And I think I kind of had to take that mindset off of like my application and just focus on what it means to me.
Yeah.
And there are stories that have touched me and like patients I've met that like I still, like I talk about how I felt with them still to this day. And it's just been so impactful. And I think that is what's important. What did you make out of the experience? And also like being able to articulate that experience in your application, how it means to you, is really important, I believe. But I wanted to say, I actually had a conversation with a doctor, and everyone's like, there's a certain amount of hours you need to reach for volunteering. I believe that I had met those hours. I don't know, but I think the doctor was telling me like, you don't need to volunteer anymore. A lot of people volunteer, but to me, it's not just volunteering. It's like giving back to my community. Like when I go into when I'm volunteering at the hospital and I go into a patient's room and I see how their face lights up, like that just is so much more meaningful than those hours and what goes in my application.
You don't want to just like mark things on a checklist.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's like not easy, but I think a lot of people start off that way.
Yeah.
But volunteering truly is like a big place for like growth and a big place for you to learn more about yourself, your interests, and how you want to give back to the community further. I think.
What are we all what have we all done to volunteer? Nora, you volunteered a lot.
Quite a bit, yes. So I've been all over the hospital. I've been in hospitality. I've been specifically in volunteer services. I did a lot of volunteer work in child life, in pediatrics, which was my personal favorite. I got the opportunity it's essentially playing with the pediatric patients and kind of giving them a sense of normalcy. You want to give them like a real childhood, even in the hospital setting, which I have seen is just so impactful. It is just incredible how resilient these kids are and how big of a difference you can make just in like a half-hour play session.
This is all at UCLA?
Yes.
Is there a specific program you want to plug?
I was just part of the student volunteer program, but I specifically volunteered in the child life department.
Okay.
I don't even know if they're still accepting volunteers. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different programs like
Yeah.
that. So kind of like a peds volunteering and,
Yeah.
and being able to work with kids, play with kids. Yeah, so your level of impact is not necessarily something that you can quantify, but it's palpable.
Right.
You're changing lives with volunteering.
Absolutely.
Melody, what do you think of volunteering? What have you made of it?
Yeah, so I've volunteered like the hospital, like I said, but I've also volunteered more at an oncology clinic, and that has really it showed me like a different side to medicine that I know I want to pursue, and it like taught me like how I would like to be as a physician.
Like what side?
Just kind of like how you treat patients that are, they're feeling very vulnerable, they're feeling very scared. Obviously, like they're getting treatment, and it's a scary time, like getting a diagnosis that you have cancer. And seeing how the doctor interacts with the patient and how, just like a simple conversation can really calm the patient, that has taught me so much. And even being able to talk to the patients, like I'll take their vitals. When I talk to the patients and just like knowing that they can talk to someone and feel comfortable, and someone like they just confided in me, I think that even that small little interaction means a lot. But I wanted to touch on the passion thing, because if I didn't go the pre-med path, I probably would have gone the education path.
Okay.
Me too.
And I wanted to kind of make my younger self happy, and I wanted to kind of like get a little glimpse of that. So I even volunteered at an elementary school for a few weeks, and just that was such a small thing for me to do. But
Have we all volunteered at elementary schools?
I have.
I have not.
You have not.
No.
I also
great
did
experience.
that.
It's very fun.
Recommend
Yeah.
to everyone.
That's funny that we all did that, almost. Well, so volunteering as an avenue for seeing different sides of people, because so often it's people that are disenfranchised in some way. Ida, how have you volunteered? What could you add to the conversation of what you've learned about humanity or your own tendencies, your own emotions?
Yeah, I have volunteered in quite a different few avenues, like hospitals, and one of the other volunteering opportunities I was able to do is because I went to UC San Diego. I was really close to Mexico, so I was actually able to drive down an hour and volunteer at a free clinic. So
cool.
that was really cool, not just because, I'm in a different country, this is very exciting, but because I was able to work with like a diverse group of people and kind of see like how different their lives are compared to what we have here. And so like that type of volunteering was fun to do. I also have done other like types of volunteering that were like virtual volunteering. So I was part of
Virtual volunteering?
Yeah, so it's like virtual
Tell
volunteering.
us about that.
So I did a bit of volunteering as a crisis text counselor, which is a bit more heavy type volunteering. So I wouldn't say that's for everyone. But in terms of like if you're not able to have access to like transportation, you don't have a car, you know, you're a student, you're in a dorm, and you want to like do something, there are virtual volunteering opportunities out there. Another one, for example, that I did was mentorship. I did mentorship for incoming freshmen and transfer students at UC San Diego as well. And so that was like sort of another avenue that I was able to take. And I think like those type of opportunities are like kind of new and emerging, given like, you know, technology has like advanced and we're able to like make those connections, like video call and like text and things like that.
It sounds like you are a great example of leveraging your position to, you know, sprinkle some volunteering in there, and also giving back, a reflection of yourself. What were you saying?
I feel like I was trying to get to your to your question. I'm sorry, what was your question again?
Yeah, the question.
Make sure I got
so
it.
this question was just how does it benefit you? What does that look like for applications?
Oh, for applications. I feel like it kind of goes back to like what Melody said, where it's like your narrative, like that's what really comes across as important. I think also like having maybe like a few more longitudinal types of volunteering is beneficial for your applicant. I know like Nora did that as well, and that's like, I feel like those
That's an
type
extreme
of,
case.
those, I mean, yeah, but I mean, those type of examples are really what show, like, I think admissions committee, like, your interest, because it is really hard to like try to like you know, have like your volunteering experiences be unique, and like it's hard
what's
to like
the spell of that anything is unique? Someone has done it before you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But like what makes your application stand out?
Yeah, like I'm thinking if I'm an AdCom, like what has she been doing for all those years? And, you know, I want to bring her in for an interview. Like, let's ask. So let's move on to the last question, because it's a loaded one. So with what time we have left, should everyone volunteer? That's one. What do medical schools want? What do you want? And what can you do with what you're given? So let's start with who should volunteer. You were mentioning that some things are kind of loaded. And I mentioned in the beginning that not everybody has the financial ability to volunteer. What do you think about that?
I mean,
is it required by medical schools to volunteer?
It's definitely not required. I mean, there are no requirements other than, you know, the classes you need to take
and sometimes not even that.
Right. But I think you can contribute to your application however you see fit for your journey. You know, whether that's getting a job or volunteering or doing research or a sport or something. You could be a D1 athlete, you know. Everyone has a different story, a different path. Not everyone's story needs to include volunteer work. That was a big part of my pre-med journey, but that doesn't necessarily need to be something. And like you said, not everyone has the privilege of being able to volunteer. They need to get a job, they need to support their lives, they need to pay off student debt or things like that, or their own rent, or you know.
Yeah, living life presently is
Right.
a good guiding principle to tell you and inform your decisions what you should be doing.
Yeah. And like Ida was saying, some roles are heavier than others, and you need to kind of decide what role is a good fit for you. Not everything is for everyone, and
are we aware of the three UC San Diego's AdCom, the three archetypal successful pre-meds, like the clinical investigator, which is like the researcher, the volunteerer, and the super clinical experiencer, things like that? It's kind of like if you really lean into that volunteer side, you know, and it's also to say that you don't necessarily need volunteering. Like Redditors typing of their hundreds of hours of volunteering and their multiple rejections, and you're kind of like, huh? Like with all that, and we still know? but it's not necessary. But it is, in some cases, a way to leverage, like Ida was saying, a way to leverage your desire and reflect on yourself, your desire to be altruistic. Do we have anything else to add to that specific question? That is, should everyone volunteer?
I honestly agree with Nora. I feel like everyone has their own path. I definitely said in previous episodes, everyone has their own journey. I would say quantity over quality, and if you have the ability to and you like to serve your community, it's a great way to give back to your community.
Thank you. So we are running out of time, but once again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you and goodbye.